Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the TTE podcast. And I know it's the holidays and it's a really stressful time. So I thought it would be good to have a really good friend of mine on who's a professional in this area to kind of talk through a little bit um, some of the challenges and maybe some tips on how to navigate a stressful time around the holidays. So I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of good people who do a lot of really interesting things. And so one of my good friends, more than that, this is one of my day ones. Um, Roy's joining us here. Roy, good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about mental health and how important it is to take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know it's the holidays. It's a stressful time for everybody. So just thought it would be good to have a conversation that hopefully people can benefit from. But before we get too deep into that, I want to give you an opportunity to sort of introduce yourself, and just in terms of how long you've been in this game when it comes to helping people, some of the things you've done, where you went to school. So real quick, give a give a brief sort of elevator pitch about yourself, sort of what you've done, where you've been, and kind of how you got into this space and all that.
Yeah, sure. Um, again, my name is Roy McClellan. I am a licensed professional counselor. That's LPC for short. Um, my background is ironically in social work. I graduated from Ohio State University in 2013, and then I went to Northwestern University and graduated just recently here uh, in December 2020. Uh, I got into the field. I've been in the field now for about 20 years. Started in 2001. Started working with kids. I was applying for jobs. I wanted to be in the field of social work counseling. Didn't know what to do, so I started working with kids. And I told myself, I'm gonna work with kids for a year because I didn't really want to work with kids. Uh, and then I ended up falling in love with working with kids and ended up working in a adolescent treatment facility for about 16 years. Then I moved on from there and went to work with formerly homeless women. Uh, helped them out with housing, and uh, we ran groups and things of that nature to kind of help them get back on their feet and support them the best way we can. And from there, I went to I worked in a psychiatric hospital, uh, and that wasn't a extreme intense experience. You're dealing with people at their rawest moments. Uh, and now currently, I work in a private practice. Uh, I do individual counseling, couples counseling, and I work with depression, anxiety, life life transitions, and personality disorders.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. And what's interesting about this platform is every now and then I get a chance to learn something that I didn't necessarily know about my friends. So I had no idea that your background was that extensive, even though we've kind of talked about it and some of the experiences that you've had in all of those different arenas. But when I kind of see it in totality laid out that way, it's like, yeah, you're really living it. Like, we talk a lot about people who talk it but don't walk it. And
Yeah.
you are always someone I hold up as an example to say, no. This guy's really living what it is that he's what he's telling people, because he can see it. So appreciate the background on that. Just wanted to be able to give people context of sort of your background and where you come from and kind of how you came up in the game, because I think you've got a lot of experience with 20 years into this and seeing it through a lot of different perspectives, whether it's children, whether it's couples, whether it's depression, a psychiatric hospital. Like you've seen a lot of different things. So as I mentioned at the top, it's a stressful time because it's the holidays and people are going to be getting together, and between COVID, because everybody's scared of Omicron, and you've got probably some crazy uncles and aunts that believe that Trump is the greatest thing since pants with pockets. And then you've probably got people in your family that want to save the trees and buy electric vehicles and everything. And all of a sudden, everybody's in a room together and it's a combustible mix. And your anxiety can be up and you're trying to avoid people while you're going to get mashed potatoes and ham. Like, it's a whole thing. So,
Yeah.
so because of that, I'm curious if someone was to come into your office or have a session with you and they're feeling this way from an anxiety perspective, what are some of the things you would tell them in terms of tips they could use to manage through that stress during the holidays?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And a lot of times, what people don't realize sometimes is, the holidays is a really stressful time for people. A lot of people don't get excited about Thanksgiving and Christmas. Some people don't get into the traditions of gifts and family and things of that nature. The one main thing I would like to tell people is to give yourself grace. And what I mean by that is, allowing yourself to get rest, giving yourself permission to not have to, participate in all the family events and functions if you don't feel comfortable doing that, and protecting, protecting yourself and your well being. I think we get caught up in, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak. We have to go shopping, and we have to uh, hang out with family, and we have to do all these so-called traditions. But in the midst of all that, we get stressed out. You know, um, we get anxiety, and we get uh, hopelessness, and that need to perform. And a lot of things is it's important to just eat right during this time, get your rest. If you feel comfortable, go out and exercise, connect with people who really care about you. Um, you know, and also not to play the comparison game. It's easy to get caught up in the life of celebrities and actors, and you know, we live in a world of Instagram, and we see people with these extravagant gifts and extravagant travels across the world, and understanding that maybe you're not in a space to do all that. You have to make Christmas and the holidays what it is for you. What does that mean for you? And if it means having some peace and sitting at home and relaxing and watching a movie, then so be it. You know, you have to work within your comfort zone.
Yeah, that Instagram point is huge because, people spend enough time on there, they think that's reality. And there's nothing more fake in this world than what people put on.
Yeah, yeah.
The projection that people put out from an Instagram perspective, just in terms of this is how I live my life. And, you see people, you hear these stories all the time about people that are doing all this traveling and yet they're doing it by themselves and they're completely depressed, but they put on for, you know what I mean? Like, I think you got to be careful. But the one word you said there that I think is important is showing yourself grace.
Mhm.
Because I'm off work. I'm off until early next year. I'm fortunate because I've been in my job for over 20 years, so I've racked up a decent amount of vacation time, so I can afford to do that. But just, today's Wednesday, the 22nd, and I've been off since Friday. And even in this first like 2.5 days, like just being able to like decompress and like actually hold a thought in my head about what is it that I want to do versus thinking about all the things I need to do,
Mhm.
um, is a really powerful sort of thing. So it's good to sort of like recharge your battery and
Mhm.
everything. And that grace is important because I know that like you'll be in situations around your family where, one of your aunts or uncles makes a little snide comment about, why aren't you married yet? Or, when are you going to have children? Or, you still smoking that shit? Like it's
Mhm.
little, like those little, like small microaggressions all of a sudden, like become, it snowballs into like a level of anxiety. And before you know it, maybe you are doing things that you shouldn't be doing that are unhealthy just to be able to deal with the stress and whatnot. And you saying give yourself some grace is really powerful, and not put yourself in, certain situations, because one of the things you and I have talked about is that I'm really big on, that I've learned in the last 18 months or so, is that I'm just super protective of my energy. And in the beginning, I didn't know how else to describe it other than describe it that way. So I'm real protective of that now. So if something sort of comes into my orbit where I feel off, like
Mm-hmm.
this isn't me, like I feel like I'm changing or I'm turning into a different person or I'm feeling uncomfortable. And those are just adjectives. I don't know what the right word is, but
Mm-hmm.
like you and I've talked about, like I have to like put some distance between myself and that in order to protect myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
find that I have to do that because there are quite a few people that depend on me in one way or another. And I feel a certain responsibility to be there for them if they need me. So that requires me to put some things in place to protect myself. But you still have to have that balance, because you can't shut the world out either. Right.
Right,
Like you
right.
got to find a way to live your life and find that balance. And, in the middle of a pandemic, that's even harder to do. But, I'm learning to do that. And I imagine others are as well. But that word grace that you said really sort of triggered that for me. So when you talk about grace to people in terms of showing yourself grace, like, can you give an example of how to do that? Like if I was one of your patients, can you give me an example of how I would show myself grace? Because I think it's powerful for people to know how to use that and apply it to their own life.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm really big on self-care, even though, being a therapist, sometimes I don't do very well with self-care, and I have to remind myself to take care of myself and do the things that are important to me to get my rest and well-being. But, what I would say to somebody, sitting in my room, you know, I would focus on their strengths, right? Focus on some of the things that they like to do, some of the things that's important to them. And I would always remind them that, in order to uh, take care of your family and friends and the people in your life, you have to be able to take care of yourself. And that's one thing that you just mentioned, that, you take care of people, right? And if you're not at your best self, right? If you're not at your best at who you are, there's no way that you can take care of the other people in your life. And I think it's important to focus on some of the things that you like to do, right? Um, I like to sometimes relax and watch TV. I like to maybe go on a walk, when I'm stressed or whatever, or hang out with you and family and friends, things of that nature, things that are going to give me calm, give me peace. Um, I talk a lot about coping skills, but coping skills are like they're catered to you, right? If I tell you to do something and that's not what you do, if I tell you, maybe you should go skiing, well, you never skied in your life, that's not going to work for you, right? So we're gonna focus on things that you like to do, and what brings you peace and joy in your life.
Exactly. You can't tell somebody go climb Everest and they never
Yeah, yeah,
never
yeah,
climbed a hill. Like, let's
yeah,
be
yeah.
practical here.
The goals have to be obtainable. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
it's gotta be something that you can reach and touch and get to. And I think that's a lot. That's what some of the concerns are. Is sometimes people uh, make these outrageous goals, right? And they don't attain them, and then they get frustrated, right? So work within your skill set.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Rome's not built in a day, so you gotta sort of start from somewhere. And I will tell you, those walks are lifesavers, because I
Oh
started
yeah,
doing
yeah.
that. I started doing that probably late spring, early summer of last year. And it
Hmm.
was on one of those walks where I was like, I know what I should do. Because I wanted to start writing again, but mentally I couldn't put everything down into
Hmm.
words. Like I couldn't center my thoughts enough. I was like, you know what? I should just start a podcast. And now, a little over a year later, 20 some episodes in, It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I should have. I'm sort of mad at myself that I didn't do this sooner. But you
Mhm.
come to things when you come to things. One of the things I
Right.
do want to talk to you about um, is I want to talk about some of the um, misconceptions that people might have about therapy, because I've run into people, and I imagine you have too. You've run into people where they'll say, "Well, therapy's not for me," or "I don't think I really need it," or this, that, and the third, and then um, I based on things I've experienced in my life, I'm a firm believer that everybody needs therapy, because we're
Mhm.
all sort of suppressing and holding things in, and sort of giving a projection of who we want to be, but that's not necessarily who we are all the time, because you're human and you struggle, and I think it's beneficial, and I think it's especially important, not just for everybody, because it is important for everybody, but I think it's really important for us as Black men, because
Mhm.
there are so many things that you're forced to sort of lock up for a variety of different reasons, whether it's social, whether it's family, whether it's society, whatever, that after a while, that shit can become toxic to your
Mhm.
spirit, to your energy, to your behavior. So just talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions that you've heard about therapy, and maybe help people sort of dispel some of those misconceptions.
Yeah, and I would like to start with, the African American community. That's, one of the big misconceptions is, um, go to church, right? Uh, put all your trust in God, and by all means, you should do that, right? If that's who you are, and that's what you believe in, then you should definitely do that. But at the same time, I think that um, it is important as Black men or Black people in general to get some of those unresolved feelings of trauma out. We hold in a lot of stuff that people may not realize or understand, and it unfortunately it plays out in our everyday lives. Um, and some of the things that we're affected by, we unfortunately sometimes project things out to people that maybe we shouldn't project. And I think that has to do with trauma. Um, another thing about therapy is, people are concerned that um, their business is going to get out there. Confidentiality is something that I hold to a high standard. Um, I tell people that um, if there's interventions and things that I work with them, I allow them to say, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Right? I don't feel comfortable with that homework assignment that you gave me, and that's fine, right? It's okay to say no. I don't want to participate in this. And the biggest misconception of therapy is, you know, it, you have a right to say no. You have a right to not participate in therapy. You have a right to not take medications. Um, it's all up to the client, right? Um, but yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with the fact that um, they're ashamed, they're frustrated, they're scared, and they just really don't understand the um, the therapy process.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was having a conversation with someone earlier this year, someone I work with, a good friend. So shout out to Heather. And we were talking about just how the podcast was going and some things that had resonated with her. And I was getting good feedback from her on just some things I could change and whatnot. But one of the things she shared with me is that it came out that you scientifically, they can show that you can pass trauma in your DNA. So the, when I heard that, it made me take a step back and really think about, you know, we talk a lot about the ancestors always watching over us. So after a while, I had to take a step back and think, yeah, there's certain innate things like you just know. Um, I don't know how to explain it, but with that trauma being passed within you, all of a sudden is your instinct is to go do something, and that's not necessarily the right thing.
Mhm.
because you're with that, you carry that trauma with you, and if you don't find a productive way to talk about it and release it, um, holding it in isn't healthy in any
Mm-hmm.
way. You know what I'm saying? And so those, I think about it like compounding interest. It starts to stack on top of each other, and
Mm-hmm.
before you know it, it becomes almost insurmountable. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just think it's really important to deal with that trauma, but you have to find a safe space. And I think one of the misconceptions about therapy, like you said, is, hey, like I don't want all my business out here, this and the third. And one of the things I'm most proud of, not proud of because this isn't my accomplishment, but I'm encouraged to see is because of COVID, people are seeking out people like yourself to have that conversation because they are feeling overwhelmed. And it might be due to COVID or family pressures or whatever. But I would imagine in your line of work, that's just like surface stuff. That
Mm-hmm.
the more and more you go, the more and more you start uncovering and start unpacking so much of what you've held in. And then when you finally kind of release it and let it go, the weight that's lifted has to be a powerful moment. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I assume you've seen people have that breakthrough, and that's got to be one of the best feelings in the world, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm real big on is childhood experiences and how they shape who you are as an adult. Because I feel like a lot of times some of the things that you've learned as a child, whether it be good or bad, right, can allow you to develop into who you are today. And I mentioned a lot of times about I like to talk about generational trauma. Um, some of the things that we learned as kids, we learned from our parents, and then our parents learn from their parents, and their parents learn from their parents, and information just gets passed from generation to generation, right? So you have a certain belief system, um, and you stay true to those belief systems, no matter if they're good or bad. They're your truths, right? They're your beliefs. And I think sometimes as society we just don't understand each other's beliefs, or we tend to downplay other people's beliefs, and we expect everyone to believe our beliefs, and everyone else's beliefs are invalid, right?
Yeah, it's almost as if your belief is so strong, you think you own the truth.
Right, right.
When the reality of it is, if you believe that strongly, there's a good likelihood you're blind to everything else.
Hmm.
Right. No, I got you on that. So let me ask you this. So what advice would you have? Let's put the holidays aside for a second, because that's really the real reason why I had you on us to talk about the holidays initially. But let's put the holidays aside. So what advice do you have, for people that are struggling? Like, because sometimes it's like, well, go talk to your best friend or go talk to the pastor or go talk to your mother or all of these people. But I think sometimes that's what people say because that's what people say. But taking a step back, sometimes those people don't always have your best interest in mind, even though they claim that they do based on things that they say or the actions that they take. So
Hmm.
from a professional perspective, what advice would you give people that are struggling, because it's going to be, once we get past the holidays, it's like the dog days of winter where it gets dark at 5 o'clock. You can't really be outside. You're looking at flights to Florida and California and Puerto Rico left and right just to be able to get some sunshine. Like, let's put the
Hmm.
holidays aside. Like, what advice do you have for people that are really struggling? Whether for whatever reason, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I kind of want to go back to another misconception is with therapy is we as therapists don't actually give advice. Um, but what we do is, we might give options, and I feel that it's an autonomous situation. Like everything that we talk and discuss about is catered to the client. So the client has the autonomy to make their own decisions, right? So I'm kind of like the vehicle to kind of like drive them or guide them to certain destinations, and then they have like the option to choose how they want to live their life. But I think autonomy is very important. Being able to do what you want to do without somebody telling you what to do.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense. I mean, provided
yeah,
that they're not what they want to do doesn't harm themselves and others.
right, right. And a lot of times in society, people, subconsciously get upset when people tell them what to do, right? Because they don't feel like they have that autonomy to, make their own decisions.
That's funny because you just described how people feel about being forced to take a vaccine. It's
Right,
like that. I don't
right,
want anybody telling me what I want to do. Like I should be able to be free to sort of make that
right,
choice, which I generally agree with. But I think in the context of what you're saying, I think that's important because if people don't feel like they can make the decision,
right,
then it's going to be difficult to have success. Because one of the things that I've realized in the last probably 10 years is it doesn't make a difference how much advice someone gives me, even if I know it's the right advice. If I can't own the idea for myself, it doesn't matter.
right, right. And another thing
Yeah.
too is, I can't, as a therapist, you know, project my feelings and opinions onto somebody else because it might not be the right thing for them. You know, um, I chose to go to school and continue my education, whereas that might not be important for somebody else. You know, um, you,
Yeah, that's true. That's true because
yeah,
that's a
you,
whole nother commitment to go to school as an adult. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You have to pick and choose at the end of the day what's right for you and what you want to do, and then me as a therapist, I'm gonna work with you to create goals to get you to where you want to be.
No, that makes complete sense. So speaking of goals, so, what sort of goals have you set for yourself? Because I have a lot of friends that are very, very accomplished, and you are one of them. So, in terms of goals, like what goals have you achieved that you're like most proud of? And then what goals do you still have for yourself? Because it is about the journey and not necessarily the destination. But people say that, but I don't think you can really appreciate that unless you have enough life experience. Because when you hear that at like 22, you're like, huh, whatever. But when you hear that at 42, it hits different. So I'm curious, what goals have you achieved that you're proud of? And then what are some goals that you are still chasing, for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question, and you know better than anyone my struggles with school and you know uh, being the non-traditional student and um,
I was so mad at you when you stopped going. I can say that for the record. I was on your helmet tough, like do not stop, keep going, because
yeah,
I knew you would go back because you would just start living life. Like I get it, but you gotta
yeah,
go because we were in grad school together at the same time. So when
yeah,
you told me you were
yeah.
going back, I was like, "Fuck yeah, you're going back. Just join this club, baby." But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, like, I had struggles in my adult life with, going to school and dropping out, going to school, dropping out. And, that was one of my big goals is I wanted to get my bachelor's degree, I wanted to get my master's degree, and I wanted to be a therapist. And, I'm happy to say today that I've accomplished all those things. And it still feels kind of surreal that, you know, I'm in a position where I'm at and I had the opportunity to help people um, with some of their problems and concerns that they're going through in life. It's definitely just a very, very rewarding experience. And, um, those were one of my biggest goals, you know, in my adult life. But moving forward, I just want to continue to grow and learn more about the counseling field. I like to be able to expand and work, with eating disorders and um, I've been diving into more of the personality disorders and more of the self care stuff like yoga and uh, healthy eating, things of that nature. Because I truly believe that holistically, you need the your mind right, your body right, uh, all of that plays into uh, becoming a better you. And just like I said before, becoming a better you, so that way you can help other people better.
No, 100%, 100%. I know one of the goals that I've set for myself is to start going back to those 3 a.m. workouts I was doing. So I'm
Hmm.
excited about actually waking up at 3 a.m. and going to the gym.
Hmm.
And I haven't done that really since COVID started. So I'm excited to get back to that, just because it was just more efficient for me to go that early in the morning. Plus,
Hmm.
I got really good sleep that way because I'd be so exhausted by the time I actually went to bed. So that self care is really really huge. So,
Yeah.
um, last thing before we go, and again, thank you for spending a little time and jumping on the pod, because I know you're busy and you've got sessions and whatnot. So I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Um, one of the things about this pod as it's sort of developed over the first year is that um, I get a lot of really good feedback about the people that do come on and the conversation that we have. And I imagine there's probably somebody out there that's either inspired by the conversation or feels like they've got maybe a little more courage to kind of explore some of the things that they've been dealing with, whether it's trauma, anxiety, depression, what have you. So, where can people, if they feel comfortable enough, to reach out to you in a very, professional manner to get, some counseling or some therapy? Where can people reach you?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I always tell people, I'm not going to sit here and self proclaim that I'm the guy that you need to talk to, right? First off, I would you know encourage people to go to the website psychologytoday.com. Um, on that website, you can search uh, counselors, social workers, psychologists, and you can look up their profile, and you can um, each one of them have specialties. And depending on what you're going through, if you're going through depression, if you're going through anxiety, if you're going through family problems, there's hundreds of counselors, social workers who can cater to your needs. And I would encourage you first to go to that website and find the person who you feel is right for you, because I may not be the one who's right for you. I have certain specialties, and um, I don't know everything. So there's a certain skill set that I have. So I would encourage people to go uh, that route first. But if you did want to come and see me, I'm also on the website Psychology Today, and you can look me up. Um, I work at a place called After the Storm Counseling. Uh, I have offices in Westerville, Ohio, as well as Grandview, Ohio. And you can look me up on there. And you can also look me up uh, on afterthestormcounseling.com, where me, along with other social workers and counselors, you can read our profiles and see kind of what our backgrounds are and our specialties. And you can, if you so choose somebody other than me that fits your needs.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I appreciate you dropping that info. I just know that there's people out there that might feel inspired to maybe take that first step. So, That's weird for me to say. Take that first step, because now I feel like a preacher that's asking for communion, or people who want to give their life to Christ. Which I'm not knocking. I'm not knocking. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
My
sure,
grandfather
sure.
was a pastor. That was just very weird for me to say that out loud,
Hmm.
because that's now triggering a memory for me. But I know that there are people out there that might hear this and feel like, hey, like, you know, this seems like a safe space. Like, I want to like find a safe space where I can start to unpack some of this. So I thought it was important to be able to, for you to get that information out to people. So that way people could take that step if they wanted to. But again, I can't thank you enough, my brother, for jumping on here and
Yeah,
having
thank you
this
for having me.
conversation. Because, again, I know it's around the holidays and it's getting to be stressful and whatnot. I mean, hell, it was stressful just me getting you on here.
Right,
It
right,
was
right.
a little stressful, but we worked it out. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And then one last thing I want to mention, which is sort of unrelated. Unrelated to this topic, but I got you here and I want to talk about it. My shout out to Alex. Alex mentioned the other day, and I think I mentioned to you, I can't believe that our high school's undefeated right now. Like, I had no idea this was going on. I just see the highlights on Instagram and I'm like, okay, they got a couple players, they throwing some oops and whatnot. And we weren't
Yeah,
we had cats that could catch oops back in the day, but it seems like they throwing them all the time now.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we're gonna
Shout
have to
outs to
go check
Gahanna.
out a game because, yeah, shout out to Gahanna, because I didn't know that they were that good. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm mad at the unis because they're all Nike and we were in Russell Athletic, but that's a whole nother that's a that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
And another conversation I'll have to have maybe you and your brother on another time, because I really stirred up some shit um, last year when I had Raheem on and we started talking about who were the best hoopers. I got to tell you, to this day, people still asking me about, you left out so and such and such. I'm not going to do that to you today because I want to I want to end on a good note.
Yeah, sure.
But shout out to Gahanna. Them boys is undefeated, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
As alumni and former hoopers, man, I'm always happy to see them boys doing well. So you boys
Yeah, for
keep doing
sure.
your thing. But again, man, I can't thank you enough for jumping on here, man. This was good, and hopefully maybe I can have you back again sometime. Because this is a topic that's always going to be at least top of mind for me, because I know what therapy's done for me, and I know you know the benefit of like unpacking so many things and sort of, for lack of a better way to describe it, putting it in its proper place to give you
Right,
sort of that clarity,
right.
and sort of that peace that you seek in your life. Like, I know the value of that. So I just think it's important to have conversations like this. So, hopefully I can have you back on and we can just keep, conversations like this going. And again, if this pod resonates with you, by all means, email the pod at talltatteducated at gmail.com. And if you really feel like you need to talk to somebody, go to psychology.com, like Roy mentioned. You can look him up if you feel comfortable having a conversation with him. But just want to make sure that people get the help that they need, because people can really benefit from this, because your mental, physical, spiritual, emotional well-being, you shouldn't compromise those things in any way. So with that, again, my brother, thank you for jumping on. This has been
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
and we'll
If
do.
I could add one more thing.
Please do, please do.
Okay, so again, during this time of holidays of stress, I wanted to make sure everyone has a very important resource, and that's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Uh,
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
very, very important. If you're feeling down and out and struggling, you can call 1-800-273-8255. And again, that is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. If there's somebody in your life that you feel that is struggling majorly with depression, or even if it's yourself, please call the number and they'll get you the help that you need immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to see people doing well and thriving. So if you need help or know somebody that does, make sure you use that number. Reach out to those good folks. They can help you. And again, check out Roy, check out psychology.com, and get yourself the help that you need. So with that, my brother, I appreciate you jumping on, man. This was really, really good. We'll do this again here soon. But I can't thank you enough for spending a little time with me to talk about something that's important to me and important to a lot of other people.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, man. We'll holler at y'all later.
All right. Yes, sir.
Peace.